Prepare to witness how the cozy alliances between mainstream media, gatekeepers, and high-profile targets actually suppress the truth rather than revealing it to the public. Usually, we assume that close ties between reporters and their subjects lead to better scoops, don't we? However, when these intimate bonds with figures like Jeffrey Epstein function as a shield instead of a window, we face a deep systemic crisis. Many whispers have circulated regarding the secret pacts between press giants and Donald Trump, illustrating how that proximity served Trump's rise because influence is the ultimate currency. Have you ever wondered why the biggest scandals often take decades to surface? Today, we are analyzing the gravity of that access by elite journalists to men like Trump and Epstein, because it completely warps how the news is framed. Consider this specific case study. There was a prominent financial writer, formerly at the New York Times, named Landon Thomas Jr. Unless you follow high-stakes banking maneuvers, his name might be unfamiliar, but he spent years at that paper, and his footprint in the recently unsealed Epstein documents is deeply troubling. To be absolutely transparent, I am not implying that Thomas was a participant in the horrific physical crimes or the trafficking operations. But what if I told you his role was arguably more dangerous for the public's right to know? While his actions were not equivalent in depravity, they were still fundamentally wrong. After analyzing the legal files, I've found a trail of correspondence between Thomas and Epstein that exposes a catastrophic breakdown in professional morality. This silence ensured that vital facts about both Epstein and Trump remained hidden long before the 2016 race began. Information was buried years before the famous recordings or the official campaign announcement, but wait until you hear how early the warnings actually started. It also echoes what is currently unfolding in British circles, a web of influence that goes much higher than you think. Let's look at the data. On January 19, 2012, Epstein messaged Thomas about a Norwegian contact. Then, Thomas sends a message to Epstein saying, "Look at this," regarding an inquiry from a woman asking about a 2005 article. Thomas dismissively asks Epstein if she is one of his tormentors. Can you imagine a journalist labeling a potential victim as a tormentor to her own abuser? This happened for years after the Florida plea deal, long after anyone could claim ignorance about the nature of Epstein's operation. Yet, because Thomas wanted to rub shoulders with the masters of the universe, he chose to stroke Epstein's ego. He traded his professional soul for proximity to power. Why? Because back in 2005, Thomas became the Epstein expert after a glamorous profile in New York Magazine. That story, titled International Man of Mystery, was written in a flashy, superficial style. Yet it contained a smoking gun about Donald Trump's awareness of Epstein's habits. Thomas quoted Trump saying he'd known Jeff for 15 years, and that they both enjoyed beautiful women, specifically those on the younger side. While people now point to this as proof of Trump's knowledge, Thomas used it then to build a bridge to Epstein. But the bridge didn't just carry information, it carried protection. By January 2015, the relationship was disturbingly casual. Thomas messaged Epstein asking, "How are you holding up?" and told him, "Don't let the bastards get you down." True integrity dies when the watchdogs start protecting the wolves. In a chilling exchange that same month, Thomas read a victim's deposition and asked Epstein, "What does she want? Money." Epstein replied, "Fame." Thomas then advised the predator to change the narrative by doing a TV interview to show the world he wasn't deranged. How does a New York Times reporter end up acting as a PR consultant for a known predator? By March 2015, Thomas was even asking Epstein for charity donations. This is precisely why he no longer writes for the Times. In December 2015, another incredible exchange occurred. Thomas told Epstein that people were hounding him for dirt on Trump because of that old 2002 quote. Epstein offered to send photos of Trump with girls in bikinis in his kitchen. Thomas didn't report it. He suggested passing it to a political reporter for the good of the nation, but stayed silent himself. Why would a serious man sit on photos that could change an election? He even watched as Trump's lawyers lied to the press about the depth of the Epstein connection. Never once speaking up. Epstein even bragged about Trump nearly walking into a glass door because he was so distracted by young girls swimming at his estate. When Thomas asked Epstein if he still talked to Alan Dershowitz, Epstein claimed the lawyer couldn't tell the truth about anything. By early 2016, Thomas admitted to Epstein that Trump's rise was getting scary. Yet he predicted voters wouldn't care because shamelessness is a political weapon. By June, Thomas was telling Epstein he was a hell of a guy with a smiley face, while noting that every news outlet, except the New York Times, was digging into the Trump-Epstein link. Does that sound like objective reporting to you? Why was the Times silent? Thomas was likely the wall preventing the truth from leaking. Even as the election neared, Thomas was asking Epstein for stock market advice on how to position his portfolio if Trump won. Instead of investigating a criminal, he was looking for an inside edge on his finances. After Trump took office, the messages continued. In 2017, Epstein alerted Thomas that Donald was arriving at his home that evening. So much for the no-contact narrative. By 2018, they were gossiping about Michael Wolff's book, with Epstein calling the sitting president stupid and goofy. Thomas even thanked Epstein for favors that made him look good to the bosses. It's nauseating. I also found a research paper in the DOJ files about the grooming process discussing how to redefine child abuse. The level of calculation here is staggering. We also have to mention Michael Wolff, who was also coordinating with Epstein. In 2018, Wolff and Epstein were wargaming how to handle the media, suggesting they framed the crimes as simple prostitution to take the moral high ground. Wolff even suggested that Trump was the real villain, but wait until you see who else was in the room. During these sessions, I'm going to conclude this segment now because the British connections involving Peter Mandelson deserve their own deep divan. Trust me, that story is even darker. Landon. Thomas Jr. finally left the Times in 2019 after his editors discovered he'd solicited $30,000 from Epstein. These ethical breaches are beyond egregious. The Times claimed he failed their standards, but the damage was already done. Silence in the face of evil is a form of complicity. Was it worth it for the media to maintain these toxic friendships while withholding information that could have altered the course of history? It wasn't. It demonstrates how Epstein weaponized the press to create a false reality. We are seeing the systemic failure of our institutions, not just the courts, but the journalists who were supposed to protect us. The American people were failed by the New York Times and others who prioritized access over truth. You should be furious. Demand real accountability from those who hold the microphone. I will have that update on the UK scandal very soon, and you won't want to miss what we found in those logs. This is Winds of Thought, and we are committed to bringing you the facts without any filters. If you believe in the truth, please hit that like button and subscribe to help us grow this community of informed citizens. Stay vigilant.